Greetings! Welcome to The Road Cook. Today we're going to be making sweet and spicy roast pecans. Very tasty little treat. And we're going to learn a little bit about improvising, which is very important in the kitchen. Also a note about spice. We'll be using Ancho peppers and we'll be using Cayenne. Cayenne in particular, but spices in general, are flavor enhancers. Salt is similar. We'll talk about that another day. A long time ago when I first started out cooking, I was on the Third Coast cooking for a bunch of Cajuns, and I thought I knew Cajun cooking at that time. Came to find out I was very wrong. One day one of the Cajun workers came to me and he said, you know, if you can taste the cayenne, there's too much. That really confused me for a long time. So I started studying and researching and learned about the difference between just using a spice like a cinnamon or a flavor enhancer like a cayenne, like a salt, and many others. A lot of your citruses are flavor enhancers. Things like salts and citrus on meats as a marinade will open the pores and allow flavors to move in and out. And this helps with the enhancing part. Alright, so let's get to it. Ancho pepper. A lot of places you can't find it powdered. You don't have to use ancho. If you have another type of mild to medium pepper, that's fine. You also can find dried ancho peppers in most stores that you can then grind up. If you have to go to a whole ancho pepper that's dried in the store, I recommend you put it in your food dehydrator or oven at a low temperature and dry it out more. Dry it till it's brittle. And then you can put it in a mortar pestle, you can put it in a food processor, blender, what have you, to grind it up. Improvising. It's not that big a deal. If you don't have one pepper, use another. Alright, I'm going to go to my cheat sheet. We're going to get this started. So I've got about 4 cups of pecan halves, and then I'm going to get a tablespoon of ancho. Here's another little trick for you. You see I've got all my spices and stuff laid out. All my ingredients are laid out here. I do this all the time. I don't do this just for the video. It's a good habit to have. That way you know before you start that you have everything you need. Now, tip number 2, I need a tablespoon of ancho pepper. Alright. Like I said. Now I take the ancho pepper and I put it away. A, cleans up the space quickly. B, I know it's already in the pot. Alright, next we have a ½ teaspoon of cinnamon. Cinnamon is often misunderstood. This bad boy is real strong. Most of the other ingredients will be like a teaspoon or a combination to make a teaspoon. The cinnamon is a ½ teaspoon because it's very powerful. Respect thy cinnamon. And again, I put it away. Dun, 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 dun. All right, this is where the improvising comes in. The next ingredient is a Chinese 5-spice. Chinese 5-spice is a combination of 5 spices. I don't happen to remember all of them right now, but the basic gist, what I'm going to improvise with, is allspice, clove, and nutmeg. All right. I need, give or take a teaspoon of the 5-spice. So what I'm going to do is, because I don't have all 5 spices, I'll use a ½ teaspoon of each to boost that potency. All right. So allspice, already ground in this case. I prefer the berries, but fresh out. Bottom of the jug. Alright. Now for one of my favorites, a little fresh ground nutmeg. It's very difficult to measure it like this. Now, if you're really anal retentive about such things, you can always put out a little piece of paper and you can grind it on there and then measure it out. I've been doing this for a long time, and cooking as opposed to baking, there's a lot of eyeballing. And we're going to call this cooking even though it's going to get baked. So I need about a half teaspoon of fresh ground nutmeg. Close enough. Especially since the fresh ground is going to be stronger than the pre-ground. That's why I really like fresh berries and nuts and things like that to work on myself. Alright, clove. This, of course, won't be exactly accurate because I'm taking the whole cloves and I'm going to grind them up in a mortar pestle. I went for years without one of these things. Thought, who needed it? That's old school. Throw it in the grinder. Let the electric motors tear it up. You know what? I love mortar pestle. This has become one of my favorite tools. So many different things. Maybe one of these days I'll do some mole for you. Mole's a chocolate-based, somewhat spicy marinade sort of sauce that is claimed by Mexico, but actually mole is an Aztec word that means to grind. Speaking of grind, this could have been ground a little more. No problem. Improvise, improvise, improvise. I would say improvise, adapt, and so forth, but that might be considered plagiarism. Alright, good enough. What do we got next? You see, clean as you go. Always, always, always clean as you go. It makes things so much faster, so much better. Okay. Need a teaspoon of ginger. I've never tried this particular recipe with a fresh ginger root. I guess you can. I don't see why not. But you'd have to do a lot of grinding and whatnot. And I just don't know how that would work out. Alright. Half a teaspoon of cayenne. See, you got teaspoons of this, tablespoon of that, and here we get down to a half teaspoon of cayenne. This is what I'm talking about with flavor enhancement. It doesn't take much to merge the flavors. Wine does the same thing in cooking too. You'll notice that people that use wine in a sauce will use the wine towards the end, and they don't use much. If you use too much wine in a sauce, it'll turn the sauce bitter. But wine or whiskey or whatever you happen to be using, that alcohol evaporates fast and it draws those flavors together. Alright, so I should be down to one ingredient because I got one ingredient left. And there we go, a half cup of brown sugar. You know you always have to pack your brown sugar. It makes for an accurate measurement. Okay. So that is all of my spices for my sweet and spicy pecans. Really very easy. Mix all this up. Got us a nice mixture. Don't worry if it's a little lumpy. What we're going to do is we're going to blanch the pecans, roll them in this, sorry, and then bake them. Right. So here we have our handy dandy butane burner. I already pre-warmed my water over here so we wouldn't waste any time. But these butane burners We use these at home more than we use the stovetop. These things are incredible. You can get them almost anywhere. Any sporting goods supply store will have these things. And they take a little can of butane. It has all kinds of safety factors on it. You can't fire this thing unless everything's in place, which is really cool. You lock the cylinder down. It's got a self-starter on it, and it's got little marks where you can tell. Back it away from my wood. I don't want to start my cabinets on fire. As I said, I already started this thing, so we'll just bring the hot water over here. What you want to do is take your boiling water and you want to blanch your pecans. So I got about 4 cups here. This recipe calls for roughly 4 cups. Blanch your pecans for 1 minute. Again, it's not an exact science. Don't worry if it's not exactly a minute. Just don't let it go for 20. What this is going to do, this will soften the pecans, and it will, again, sort of open the pores. Let me check my time. Oh, cool. Sort of open the pores, soften the pecans, so they absorb the spice-sweet mixture. And then we will go ahead and put them on a cookie sheet and bake them. Now, I happen to have a more or less commercial sized baking sheet. You don't have to do this. I usually do it here in my little emerald, which I love the emerald, on this little tray. It's just that you have to do a couple batches at a time. Today I just want to go ahead and knock it out in one shot. Make sure you get a lot of grease on your pan. After all, these sugars will be melting, they will be caramelizing, they will be sticky. While this is baking, you do not want to stir it, turn it, or mix it. If you do so, you take the chance of breaking the crust on the pecans. Okay, we're about at a minute. I'm going to give it a little bit more. I get paranoid that way. And I think that'll be just fine. See, you turn that off, you click that up, you're completely safe. I love these things. Can't say enough about them. All right, send her through the old strainer. Don't mind the steam. Look for a spot because the other side of your kitchen is now full. Alright, so now we have hot blanched pecans. We simply put them into the sweet spice mixture. And we begin to coat them. If you need to get in here with your hands, that's fine, no problem. I highly recommend you glove up to do it simply because this is messy. Oh my goodness, that smells wonderful. See, you have a beautiful, even coating. Keep going until you get her even. Get her done. Sorry, Larry. It's okay to overdo. If you have to put in a little bit more spice, a little bit more sugar to make yourself comfortable, that's okay. The only thing is that if you get too much in here, what you're going to do is end up with a coating that breaks off a little bit and more extra stuff that will stick to the cooking pan. So that's why the recipe is fairly balanced. It's really amazing. It's like every little pecan in here is covered and there's very little coating left over. Okay. So give them a nice even spread across the well-greased board. It's just cooking, folks. It's not rocket science. See, there's just a little bit left on the bottom. I'm going to scrape that in there because I want all the sugary, spicy goodness I can get. Spread these suckers out. Nice and even. So another reason that I use the big cooking sheet is, as you can see, there's enough so you're going to have a little distance. If you can get a little distance, that's less that they'll stick together, because they'll stick together. They're going to caramelize, and once they're cool, you'll break them off. Generally, if the cooking sheet is greased well enough, they'll come off the cooking sheet okay once they're cool, and then you just kind of crumble them up by hand. Alright, so just to double check, I think it's 12 to 15, yes. 12 to 15 minutes at 350 degrees. I highly recommend that about 10 minutes into it, that you start to watch them. These will, when you're dealing with sugars, you'll go to from caramelized to carbon real quick. So about 10 minutes, keep an eye on them, but roughly 12 to 15 minutes at 350 degrees. Don't stir them, don't turn them. Rotate them if you wish. Alright, checking my time, grabbing my remote, and I will see y'all in about 15 minutes. Greetings and welcome back. Pecans are done. I took the liberty letting them cool a little bit, and let's take a look. Nice, it's like the coating has covered evenly. It's caramelized nicely. And it's quite tasty. What I recommend, you can take a spatula and you can come in and you can scrape these off, bundle them up, knock the stuff off, and you're good to go. I kind of recommend you take the time to pull them off by hand and break them up. You're going to end up with a much nicer product. And this caramelized sugar, as you scrape with a spatula, that's going to, it glues itself to the edge of the spatula and makes the spatula very difficult to clean. So that's really all you have to do. Then you can bag them up any way you like. These freeze wonderfully. They last forever in the freezer. What we generally do is vacuum seal them. You vacuum seal them, you can keep them on the shelf, in the refrigerator, in the freezer, whatever makes you happy. Quite honestly, they don't last long. And that is about all there is to it. So I thank you for coming to visit The Road Cook. I hope you enjoyed making pecans. You can find me on YouTube and Patreon. And I look forward to seeing you next time.